Welcome to SVG-TV News for Thursday, March 23rd, 2017. I am Rochelle Batiste with the details. The Brazilian embassy here has expressed disappointment over the government's decision to impose a temporary ban on all beef and poultry products coming from its home country. The ban here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines comes on the heels of a widespread action that is taking place throughout the region, starting with Jamaica. According to reports, there were some manufacturers who were using rotten meat to produce such products, such as corned beef. But according to the Brazilian ambassador to SVG, Antonio Castro, the government's decision is a harsh one and lamented that the ban is doing a disservice to consumers here. Nalisha Miller has more in this report.
Sanctions have no need to fear about the consumption of all beef and poultry products from Brazil. That's according to the country's ambassador to SVG, Antonio Castro. His statement comes on the heels of a widespread action that is taking place throughout the Caribbean, following reports from Brazilian authorities that several major Brazilian meat processors have been selling rotten beef and poultry. The companies are also alleged to have paid hefty bribes to auditors in exchange for fraudulent sanitary licenses. Jamaica, who has an importation of 99.5% from the South American region, was the first to place an immediate ban on such products. In an interview today with SVG-TV News, Castro described this country's government's decision to impose a temporary ban on meat and poultry products from Brazil as a circumscribed problem, which has developed into an exaggerated scandal. And he further stated that he is disappointed that such decision had to be taken, highlighting the fact that no illegal acts has been proven up to this time. The Brazilian ambassador stated further that a disservice is being done to consumers.
There are no sanitary risks whatsoever in consuming corned beef from Brazil and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And taking them from the shelves, for instance, may be a problem, because if you do not have anything to substitute for in the short run, you're doing a disservice to your clients without, let's say, a real sanitary risk being involved. And we are going to, at least what I expect to do, is be able to prove to our colleagues in the government with documents and information that the situation is absolutely safe and under control in what regards St. Vincent and the Grenadines, which is, let's say, my responsibility.
Explaining that the Brazilian government is working aggressively to dissolve the issue through rigorous investigations, Castro noted that so far, SVG should not feel threatened.
Our country, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we have no problems whatsoever. There are 21 companies that have been accused of allegedly tampering with meat products. Of these, 3 of them we have already enough indications that something must have happened. They have already been suspended. The others are under investigation. Of these 21 companies, only 6 have exported anything in the last 2 months. And of these 6 companies that have exported meat products, none have exported to St. Vincent and the Grenadines or to the United States, which is the country from which most of Brazilian origin corned beef is sourced to St. Vincent.
He reiterated that he is convinced that the government's decision may have been influenced by what is taking place regionally in regards to the issue.
There is no whatsoever problems with the sanitary preoccupations here in St. Vincent and Grenadines with Brazilian meat products. We understand that perhaps this was a reaction that followed a little bit what the other countries in the region have done in order to be able to sit down and clarify the matter. And in this circumstances, tomorrow I'm going to see the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in order to talk about it. And I think the best interests of both our countries will be served if we could go on doing our trade as business as usual.
The number of CARICOM countries which have placed a temporary ban on the importation of corned beef or meat products from Brazil continue to increase, with Barbados and the Bahamas joining their CARICOM partners from Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, and now St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Local supermarkets have responded to the government's order to remove all beef and poultry meat products from Brazil off their shelves. Nolisha Miller, The Evening News.
Thank you, Nolisha. Presenting a review of the local, regional, and global markets, the First Citizens Investment Service today, Thursday, March 23rd, held its Global Market Outlook and Budget Review Seminar at the Grenadines House. The seminar was aimed at looking at some of the implications of changes in the global and regional landscape and how investors in St. Vincent and the Grenadines can cope. Nikita Tony has more in this report.
Aimed at reviewing the economic situation of the previous year, as well as provide suggestions, outlooks, and insights into what can be expected in the upcoming year for this country, First Citizens Investment Services held its 6th annual Global Market Outlook and Review earlier today, Thursday, March 23rd, identifying key initiatives for SVG during the year 2017, one of which is to increase foreign direct investment in the country. Country Manager of FCIS SVG, Nolan Gabriel, while looking at the 2017 estimates, highlighted this country's dependence on tax revenues, which she noted can be solved or reduced by enhancing the country's tax collection system.
The majority of it is tied to tax receipts. We have to be very efficient in this and ensure that we are really going and ensuring that everyone is paying their fair portion of tax and we're very efficient in our collection. Fiscal consolidation, all towards that 2030 goal of reducing debt to GDP. In addition to that, in terms of reducing our dependence on short-term debt. The other things that we're looking at is to reduce public debt. It is now above 80%. We also have to come up with a national plan to manage natural disasters and how we recover from those. We have to also look at reducing crime.
Noting that vulnerabilities of the Caribbean region economies remain persistent due to them being small and open, Head of Research and Analytics at FCIS, Vanji Ramaratan, outlined that instances such as fixed exchange rates, a narrow export base, as well as fiscal inflexibilities have led to historically low levels of economic growth and development in the region.
So because we're very open and we're very small, we basically import most of what we consume and what we use with a very small export base. So in that context, we see a lot of the countries running very, very high external current account deficits. We do expect a partial recovery of the world economy, as Sana mentioned, and that should create a space for boosting regional export volumes and exports of services, in particular tourism, as well as FDI inflows. Governments are now more conscious of the fact that their fiscal accounts they need to rein the fiscal accounts and do some sort of consolidation.
Covering the global market perspective and development, General Manager of FCIS, Sana Rambier, pointed out that the IMF has predicted global growth to increase in 2017 at 3.4% and continue in 2018 to reach 3.6%. She further stressed the need for investors in SVG to monitor the economic activity of larger markets, especially the U.S.
Of course, with a new president, we need to look at the pace of the policies, pace of implementation of his policies, and depending on how fast or slow he moves, then the markets adjust accordingly. Interest rate forecast, currency, outlook, etc. Europe has shown a very positive trend for the start of 2017, and we need to monitor the UK negotiations with Europe now that they're finally triggering Article 50. And there's China. We need to continue to monitor China as well. They are projecting a downward trend, but we need to monitor, well, what happens there, what are the policies they implement, because, and again, their relations with the U.S.
It is expected that reviews and suggestions presented at today's seminar would go on to promote greater economic activity in SVG. Nikita Tony reporting for SVG-TV News.
Meanwhile, Head of Research at First Citizens Investment Services, Vanji Ramanathan said SVG, according to estimations, was among the top performers in the region in regards to GDP growth in 2016. Even with this, Ramanathan pointed out that the country was at the highest end as it relates to individual external current deficit across the region and outlined key economic concerns as they look forward to what lies ahead.
In terms of building on the tourism industry, coming out from the completion of the airports, hopefully that will sort of push tourism a little way further, and getting some of the international flights to start coming in as well. One of our other concerns is really on the fiscal accounts, where the public debt now stands at around 80% of GDP. I think some fiscal consolidation would be necessary in order to bring the fiscal accounts and the debt burden down to some manageable levels. There is a medium-term fiscal strategy, a framework which outlines a target for the public sector debt at around I believe it's 60% of GDP or 70% of GDP by 2030. So I think the fiscal consolidation needs to begin now in order to sustainably bring down the overall fiscal balance as well as the public sector debt.
Cognizant of the fact that there are a lot of changes in the U.S. and Europe to come, General Manager of FCIS, Sana Ragbear, stressed the importance for all investors and prospective investors here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines to be aware of global trends.
There be a focus on looking in particular at how these markets develop, especially with new leadership in the U.S. What are the policies they will implement? How will that affect the U.S. dollar? How will it affect tourism? Because there's a direct impact on St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Once you're able to do that, then you can see the flow coming into St. Vincent and determine what could be the economic outlook for St. Vincent going forward. Especially with the new airport, now that it's open, I know there will be a lot of focus on what can be the positive trends and developments coming out from the Argyle International Airport. And it's important in the world that we live in that we track how internationally things are developing so we can understand how the benefits of that new airport and how will that benefit St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
In other news, opposition leader and president of the New Democratic Party, Dr. Godwin Friday, believes that the Argyle International Airport will become just a showpiece if more is not done to promote the air facility. On radio recently, Dr. Friday chided the government for bringing in chartered flights at the opening of the air facility in February, claiming that it was a waste of resources.
What bothers me is that once you open it, if you don't have commercial flights that pay for themselves to come there, why would you spend taxpayers' money just to bring in 2 or 3 planes for show? You know,
that was a showpiece, man.
It is, and this is a waste of public resources. Because what is the point? To show that a plane can land? I mean, we all assume that was the whole point of building the airport. And when it is operational, you know, then if people come and they say they want to have flights coming from various destinations and they're running their own commercial, taking their own risks and so on, then fine. That's you expect that will come about at some point in time. But you don't then go and have the show where you're bringing in planes and you're paying for it yourself, and then the next day nothing. And we have to pay for that when that money could have been well deployed elsewhere.
The opposition leader pointed out that the Argyle International Airport costs more to operate, and as such, all efforts should be made to ensure that it generates revenue to bring maximum benefits.
From the fare from Kingstown to the airport is, I think it's somewhere in the range of $80. But the departure tax has also gone up from $50 to $100. So, you know, the cost is already upon us.
Yes.
And so we can't be lackadaisical or sitting back and waiting for things to happen. You have to have a plan in place, otherwise you're building it just for show.
With just over 10 guns, illegal guns seized here for the year thus far, Acting Deputy Commissioner of Police Colin John is crediting his officers and the public for their cooperation in getting these illegal guns off the streets. In an interview with Extreme FM on Wednesday, the Acting Deputy Commissioner pointed out that there is tremendous intelligence gathering and operative work being carried out. He, however, noted that over the last 3 months, it is the partnership of the public which has been helping to curb crime here.
From the police perspective, we are putting certain things in place. We have stepped up the patrols. There's certain intelligence that we are gathering, and we are doing targeted operations as regard certain persons. For the year so far, we have been able to arrest persons in excess of 10 firearms for the 3 months. And I want to commend the hard-working police officers for the job that they're doing. They're working tirelessly under very strenuous circumstances. And I just want to encourage them to continue the good work.
The acting Deputy Commissioner of Police also warned those involved in illegal activities to refrain from doing so, as their notorious lifestyles can get themselves and others hurt.
I just want to encourage the public to continue to support the police. We cannot do it without you, as I said before. And for the persons who are inclined to commit crimes, I'm asking them to desist from these kind of activities. When you live a life of drugs and crime, you literally have to sleep with your eyes open, not only because of the police, but because of rival gangs. And it doesn't make sense you make money and then you cannot enjoy it, because you cannot go to a party or a function. You have to literally be a prisoner in your own home. So I don't really see it make much of a sense to embark on a life of crime.
Police here are investigating the shooting of 16-year-old Darren Davey of Polyard, Annosville on Wednesday, March 22nd, 2017. According to the police, the teenager was at the Diamond Beach at about 2:20 p.m. when a masked gunman approached him and shot him just below his chest. The 16-year-old is hospitalized at the Milton Cato Memorial Hospital. Persons with any information in relation to the incident are asked to contact the police. Members of the Vincentian public are encouraged to take a proactive approach to tackle the issue of child abuse. The encouragement comes from Constable Edson Smith, who is attached to the Public Relations Department of the RSVG Police Force, who was a panelist on the Beat radio program on NBC Radio, held in conjunction with the Royal St. Vincent and the Grenadines Police Force. Constable Smith said most oftentimes persons are unaware that they are being abusive, hence the need for continuing awareness on the issue.
For example, if I grew up, my father always clothed me when I do something that he may deem stupid. Then I might go down, carry that pass that on to my children, and the cycle continues. In situations like that, I think men need to, sometimes you're never even aware of the abuse that you're inflicting on your family. But I think it's important that people who observe, or if there's a confidant in the family who the child speaks to, a teacher or elder in a church or some community member, so even a passerby who observes the behavior, instead of going and treat it like it's nothing serious, I think you should pull an individual like that aside and let them know and see if you could help them to find some sort of common ground, so that you could correct the behavior.
The police constable further urged parents to be more responsible and think of their actions amidst their frustration and anger, as their actions can have a great impact on their children.
Tell them, okay, to correct their behavior. The first thing he's going to think, you don't have any children, how could you speak to me? But I could point out to you, okay, there's a better way. You don't have to result. I'm not saying you can't hit a child, but you have to have a spirit of temperance in terms of how you do things. To go and publicly humiliate a child in front of the whole school body, I think that's cruel and unusual, because you're not only, when you leave, that child now has to go and bear the stain of you embarrassing them, breaking them down emotionally, psychologically, and then they have to go home and then they have to face that abuse again, knowing that the father or the mother is capable of doing such a thing. So amidst any pressure, you have to, as an adult, remember that you have a responsibility to watch over your child. You have a responsibility to love and take care of your child. I will never say that a person who punish the child don't love the child, but just that they might not have the education, or they might not have the knowledge to know, okay, this was I went a little far.
In an effort to build the capacity of organizations throughout this country, the National Council of Women, the NCW, recently held 2 days of Women Empowerment Workshop. One of the facilitators at the seminar, Project Officer in the Ministry of Education, Timothy Scott, said that it was critical to build capacity of groups that work particularly with women. He highlighted areas such as data collection and project management as being key components so that women's organization can not only come up with project ideas, but also how to execute it well.
Setting up a safe house does not necessarily mean that it will function in the way they want it to function. So what we would have looked at in particular as well is maybe for them to actually develop some sort of a consultancy services whereby they can actually see where they can take the management of the safe house so that it can be properly utilized. Because what is happening is that when you construct a building, it does not necessarily mean you will get the benefit out of that building once it's not, the persons, the stakeholders are not in tune in terms of that particular aspect.
So operation and execution is key?
It's key. And what they need to know as well is that you do not involve in a project just for the sake of getting involved in a project or designing a project just for that sake. The project must suit the environment, and it must suit the reason or the purpose for which they want it to suit for.
Youth Program Coordinator of the SVG Planned Parenthood Association, Marlon Charles Young, also emphasized the importance of designing projects that will be functional and bring about genuine change.
Change begins with a thought. Once you see something that you don't like, you have to be bold, you have to stand up, but you just can't stand up with your mouth closed. We have to know what the problem is. Most women think that empowerment means having a degree, but it goes beyond that. It's about knowing who you are, respect who you are, and actually fighting for what you want. For example, the problem of domestic violence, how you choose to manage that problem, how do you design a project that ends it, how the skills that are necessary, what you can overlook, what you cannot overlook, how do you actually go forward from start to the actual ending of a project, because a lot of us, we have ideas but we don't know how to manage those ideas, and that is what project management is all about, managing the idea in a way that whatever you set out to accomplish is accomplished at all times.
Some of the participants from various organizations outlined what they gained from the two-day workshop.
A lot of ideas in which to go forward, things that I never know about myself, things that I never discovered before. I know exactly how to plan right now.
So planning is key in a lot of things.
Yes, it is, because it's not just knowing about something, but it's how to do it the right way.
It is very much important because as we just celebrated Women's Day, and it is high time that we as women take a stand, because being a woman isn't about only procreating, having children. It is time that we step up in life, because we're not only homemakers, we are counselors, we are nurses, we are police. We have to be everything in order to be a role model for our children.
This workshop came as a result of the Decides Caribbean workshop project that has been launched in Barbados, November 2016. The participants are InterArts, Kariwa, Aspire, and WAR. Now, these are organizations from out of the Eastern Caribbean. Yes, we are empowering other organizations as a women's group. We want to ensure that our women are ready and they are prepared holistically to face the world and to face their future.
Householders here are being encouraged to have adequate water storage capacity, as well as to observe proper litter practices. This encouragement comes from Public Relations and Marketing Manager at the Central Water and Sewage Authority, Joan Ryan, as she spoke on activities and celebration of Water Week. Ryan stated that weather patterns which bring extreme dry and wet conditions can cause water supply disruptions, and they must ensure that they have water stored in the event of such disruptions.
In light of that, we say to folks that if you are a new home owner, we advise that you have adequate storage as part of your construction plan. You're going to construct a home, put in there within the plan the construction or the purchase of a water storage facility so that you are equipped during these extreme times. And this is something that we have to take charge of ourselves. Sometimes for those persons who already have their homes, you know what is happening within your community. You know what happens every time there is a rainy season. We are advising you, even if you cannot afford the large tanks for the 5, 6, and 1,000 gallon tanks, and you have barrels at your home, we advise you to keep them handy, keep them in an area where you can have access to them, and when you see that there is any threat to the weather system, then you fill them up and you have them on hand for use.
Speaking on cleanup activities which took place earlier this week in the Roseau area, Ryan stated that the CWSA found it necessary to conduct such activities in order to provide that community with a healthier outlook. She noted that while some infrastructural work is needed, persons living in the area as well as the general public must be mindful of their litter habits.
So right now, I think it is necessary that the persons who are living close to that drain to desist from throwing items into the drain and I'm talking about from the top of Sand Hill. You have to desist from throwing garbage in that drain because it ends up down in that area and it is damaging to the community that is living there. The amount of stuff that is within that locale cannot come from just the community alone. It has to be stuff that is washed down from the very top. So we really want to encourage persons to be mindful of their litter habits, their litter practices, and ensure that they contain their waste within their homes until their collection day.
Students of 2 primary schools in Kingston were earlier this week sensitized on the importance and benefits of becoming a volunteer. Young leaders of the Dr. J.P. Eustace Memorial Secondary School conducted sessions at the Lodge Village Primary School and the Kingston Government School as they continued their program of activities under the theme, I Volunteer, We Impact. According to the J.P. Eustace young leaders, the objective is to create awareness within the children of how they can become volunteers even at a young age and how this can add value to their lives now and in the future. The students were asked to find ways to volunteer over the next few weeks. The Dr. J.P. Eustace young leaders will then make follow-up visits so they can share their volunteering experiences. The young leaders plan to visit other primary schools in the Kingston area.